Yeah, let's get started. So I always like a dark room, but this is as dark as I can get this one. Oh, the mic. This is as dark as I can get this one. So this is which is, I think, about right. So anyway, let's get started. It's CSE116. My name is Jesse. I am comfortable with informality. Just call me Jesse. That's what I prefer. If you want to call me something else, that's fine. Dr. Hartloff, Professor, whatever else. If you like the formality, I'm not going to care. But we can just keep it casual at Jesse. So a little bit about me. I guess I should. I did in the last lecture. I guess I will. But a little bit about me. I did my. Grew up around here. I did my undergrad here. I did my PhD here, and now I'm teaching here. So needless to say, I like it in Buffalo. I enjoy the cold. I don't know. I just like it here. I always find my way here. I've lived other places. I've traveled and stuff. I don't know. I just like it here. So if you have any questions about like the undergrad curriculum, I went through the same thing that you're going through right now. If you have questions about it, let me know. I won't mind being pretty candid about it. And you didn't come here to talk about me, so that's all I'll say about that. And let's talk about 116. So the first thing, the most important thing that you need to know, the first thing you need to know is the course website. I made this literally as easy as I possibly can. The course website is CSE116.com. I thought about it for a while, and I don't think I can make it any easier than that. I wanted to. I wanted like CSE.116, but that's not a top-level domain, and the .com is fine. CSE116.com. The course is active on UB Learns on the now Brightspace, but I won't use that for anything. I didn't like the old UB Learns when it was Blackboard. Now it's Brightspace. I'm hearing about the same complaints from my colleagues about it. It doesn't seem like they really improved everything. It's just trading in one set of headaches for another set of headaches. So I'm not even going to try to learn it, to fight with it. I'm just going to use this course website and then have links to any relevant stuff that we need for the course. It'll all be right here. The only thing I have on UB Learns is a link to the course website. I posted it as an announcement. And that's where the lecture recordings are going to be. So the room will record the lectures and upload them there. So if you want to rewatch the lectures, they'll be on UB Learns. Usually right after lecture, they're good about having them posted like before we even leave the room. They're usually posted. But if you're like me and don't even want to go there for anything, I have a TA who will re-upload the lectures. Probably this one. There's two sections. They'll probably upload this one instead of the first one. As with this one, I already have a lecture of practice. But they'll repost this. But that won't usually be until hours or maybe even a day or so after lecture. So if you can wait, you can just use YouTube and have a better interface. If you want to watch the lecture immediately, that's your only reason why you would have to go to UB Learns for CSE 116. All right, so let's go through these and talk about every aspect of the course. Who's ready? So first link, this is AutoLab. If you took 115 here, you know what AutoLab's all about. But if you're here with AP credit and this is your first semester, or if you had transfer credit for 115, however else you might have got here without taking 115 here, or any other CSE course that uses AutoLab, this is where we're going to submit programming assignments. This won't be active for you yet. I just had a few questions after the last lecture. This isn't active yet. If you click on that link right now, it'll say you're not enrolled in this class or whatever warning it says, or just error or something like that. I haven't uploaded the roster yet, so you won't have access to it. I will upload them by Wednesday. I don't like uploading the roster too much during add drop because the roster changes so frequently as everybody's adding and dropping. So I'll do it before Wednesday. That's the first time we'll need AutoLab. So that's where you're going to submit your programming assignments. If you're not familiar with this, you'll submit your programming assignment, and AutoLab will give you feedback and your grade on that assignment. And you can submit as many times as you want until the final deadline of that assignment. So you can submit, get your progress, see how you're doing, get some feedback, work on your project, submit again, submit as many times as you want, and feel free to to take advantage of that, submit and get your feedback, and have rounds of, I already said it, but submission and feedback. Unless you're submitting way too many times, sometimes I see students submitting literally hundreds of times for a single assignment. There gets to be a level where you're abusing the system, and I'd argue that you're not really learning at that point. You should be able to work on your project, get it working, and then submit it. But do take advantage once you think you're done with a part of the assignment. Submit, make sure you actually are done with it before moving on to the next part. I see some students working on the whole assignment and trying to submit it all whole shot and get it all done in one submission, only to find out that they made a mistake way early in the assignment, and now they have to redo a whole bunch of work. I also encourage lots of submissions so that me and the TAs can see your progress. There's nothing worse than well, I shouldn't say nothing worse. There's lots of things worse. But one frustrating thing is if I have an email from one of you later in the course and you say, hey, I'm falling behind in this course. I'm trying to get caught up. I'm almost there. I just need a little... Actually, this semester, I kind of got rid of the need for this, but I just need a little extension here or whatever, a little saving grace here or whatever. And then I go to AutoLab and I see they haven't even made a single submission for the latest assignment. I email them back and be like, WTF, you ain't even trying. And then they'll say, oh yeah, I almost got it done. I just haven't submitted yet. Well, submit it so I can see what you're doing. You're trying to ask for a favor. Show me that you're putting in the effort. So submit for no other reason, just so I can see that you're putting in the effort. If you have to ask for something, I'm going to check that and say, oh yeah, 10 submissions with incremental progress between each one. Yeah, they're working. Let's give them whatever they're asking for here. No submissions, I'm going to be like, dude, what are you even doing? So take advantage of the multiple submissions, as many submissions as you want, no penalties for as many submissions as you want. In 116, that will start lowering in future courses, but for 116, you still have that advantage. Whenever I show code in lecture examples, if there's code examples in the slides, they'll be posted to this repo. They're mostly all here already. You can go to the code for that example. For example, on Wednesday, we're going to start where else but with Hello World. And we're going to talk about this program. You can go to the repo and get this exact code. You can run this code. And I do encourage you to tinker with the code, the examples in lecture. This is going to print Hello Java to the screen. I encourage you to run the program, verify that it actually does that, and then modify the program, tinker with it, and see what effects your changes have. For this one, maybe not too interesting. But when the examples get more complex, play around with it and see what changes, what effects your changes will have. It's a great way to learn, and I have all the code available, so you have that opportunity to do that during lecture. You can play with all these examples during lecture. And if there ever is a case where there's an example in the slides or an example in lecture that's not in that repo, unless I'm doing live coding, I'll do sometimes. If I'm not doing live coding and there's something in the slides that's not in there, that means I messed up. So let me know, say, hey, professor, what the hell? And then I'll make sure I get it in that repo. Memory diagram reference is what the name implies. It's a reference, the reference sheet for memory diagrams. You don't necessarily know what a memory diagram is right now, but that will be very meaningful to you as we go throughout the semester. I'll talk about quizzes later. Every single quiz is going to be a memory diagram quiz where you're given a program and you have to trace what's happening in memory as that program runs. So tell me what's going on inside the computer when it reads that code and goes through that code line by line. Tell me everything that's happening. So this is your reference to for everything memory diagram related, all the different notation and syntax we use, how we represent loops and functions and everything. It's all right here. YouTube, I already mentioned this. This is where the lectures will be posted. This also, I use this channel for all of my courses, which for the recent past has been 116 and 312. So if you see anything there for 312, just know that that's not related to this course. Feel free to watch it. I'm not going to stop you. I would encourage you to learn more stuff. But some of that content you might not quite be ready for. Maybe you are. At least conceptually, you probably are, actually, to be honest. Doing the homework assignments would be very tough. But watching lectures and getting the concepts. Anyway, if you completely ignore those, I ain't going to hold it against you at all. And there's also the past lectures from previous semesters. I have the TA who posts these each semester. At the end of the semester, he creates a playlist for the previous courses. You can go to the Spring 23 playlist and watch the whole course if you want to do that. There are always some small changes to the course each semester, so keep that in mind. Some things are going to change. But if you want to get a really good idea of what the course is going to be like and what the lectures are going to be like, a lot of them are going to be very similar lectures, to be honest. You can watch those old lectures right away. You watch them all tonight if you wanted to. I don't know how many of you will do that, but probably zero. But you have that option. You have that available to you. Actually, I shouldn't say probably zero. I know some students do that. To the later part of the semester for all courses, especially this one, it gets really heated up. So if you want to get ahead on something, we have that available. Piazza, I don't know how true this assumption is. I assume it's true that you're all familiar with Piazza. I don't have to talk about it too much. If not, I guess let me know. I could talk about it more. But it's, in brief, it's a Q&A site. Actually, if you have AP credit and this is your first semester, unless your other courses use it, which they probably do. I don't know. Anyway, it's a Q&A forum. You can ask questions. If you have questions for the course staff, the TAs and myself, post on Piazza. Make a private post to instructors. I should demo this each semester. Make a private post to individual and choose instructors. And that's going to send that message only to myself and the TAs. Make sure you do this. Don't send it just to me. I'm probably never going to see it. Make sure you post it to all instructors. So our army of 25 TAs all have an opportunity to answer your question. You're going to get an answer a lot faster like that, if as opposed to posting it just to me. If you get an answer at all, posting to me or emailing me, you might never get your question. Or you'll get your question answered after the deadline. Make a private post to instructors on Piazza. That's your fastest way to get your question answered if it's something related to the homework. A private post, especially because most of the questions we get on here are homework help questions. So if you're including your code or anything specific about your submission to avoid academic integrity, make sure you're posting it private to instructors. Don't post it to the entire class. Most of the posts on Piazza are private posts. Very few posts are actually public to everybody. So to you, it probably will look like Piazza is mostly dead. But trust me, there are lots of questions. You can look at the, I'm getting a little off track already, but you can see the post number in the URL. Watch how high the post numbers get. If you don't see many posts, because most of them aren't public, look at the post numbers and watch how fast they grow to see how many private posts there are. There's lots. But anyway, make private posts. This is also where you go to find the office hour schedule. It's quite bare. I believe there's no office hours posted yet. But as we choose our office hours, myself and the TAs, they're all going to be posted here. And this schedule is dynamic. So as we choose our hours, we're going to add them to the schedule. So if a name gets added this week, then that means they're going to be there in office hours. You can go there and get help this week. And we have two types of office hours, either office hours in this Zoom meeting or office hours in the common area outside Davis 302. That's where office hours will be for this course. When you go to office hours, you'll find a whiteboard with a bunch of names. Write your name at the end of the list, at the end of the queue. When the TA, when your name gets to the top of the queue, the front of the queue, TA is going to shout out your name. You're going to be like, yo, over here, and then they'll help you out. I think I had something else to say. I think it's this one, but it is. Oh yeah, it is. The schedule is dynamic. So not just adding office hours as we figure out our schedules. Myself and the TAs, we don't know our schedules yet. We got scheduled meetings and all kinds of other stuff before we know what's available for office hours. But once we get all that, we'll get our hours added. But we'll also, things come up. Sometimes we have to cancel office hours. Sometimes even at the last minute. Unfortunately, I don't like when TAs do that, but they have a reasonable excuse. Something happened on the way to campus or something. Sometimes they have to cancel. They'll either remove their name from this or cross out their name. So check the schedule before making a trip to office hours. Save yourself a trip if they did happen to cancel especially if they had to cancel without much notice. Check the schedule. They all have edit access. They just edit the schedule and update their office hours on the fly. And finally, Discord. So Discord is, as I have, zoom in a little more. As this implies, your place to chat with students. More of an informal place. I mean, most, if not all of you know what Discord is. A place to just chat with other students and TAs. I've been using the same Discord server for a long time, so there's also a lot of alumni in there. If you have questions for alumni, be like, yo, hey, all alumni, what's the real world like, or something like that. And I think there are enough of them in there that are still active that would be happy to give you lots of advice. This is informal, though. I have to give this disclaimer because I got in a little bit of trouble one semester. This is an informal place. So if you are interacting with a TA on Discord, do not be surprised if they're acting less than professionally. I don't pay them to be on Discord at all. I don't have any official roles for them. Technically there are the roles on Discord, but I don't have any official duties that I'm paying them to do on Discord. They're not acting as TAs when they're on Discord. They have the role just so you know that they are a TA, but they're not acting as a TA when they're in that Discord server. So if you ask them a question and they say something that you think a TA ought not say, you know what? They're being themselves at that point. I'm not going to control their personal lives. That's them being themselves. They're a fellow student at that point. So just don't be surprised. If you want to interact with them in a formal way, go to Piazza, go to office hours. That's where you can interact with them in their TA duties, and they're acting as a TA. And then I will get in trouble. If they're in office hours or Piazza acting like an idiot, then I'm going to yell at them. I'm going to be mad at them, and I want to know about that. Discord, not so much. This is a casual place, and that said, if they're doing something actually inappropriate, what I'm talking about is students like to ask homework questions on Discord. I should get specific about this because that could come across wrong the way I said it. But if you're asking them for help on the homework on Discord and they say, I'm off duty, don't be shocked that they just blow you off if you're asking them for homework help. If you're DMing me or a TA on Discord, I tell the TAs, and I do the same, to just flat out ignore you. We don't have to respond to you on Discord. If you have a homework question, go to office hours, go to Piazza. Don't go to Discord and ask them. If you want to talk with your fellow students about the homework assignment, by all means, I don't care what you use. As long as you're not cheating, I don't care what forum you're using. But if you want to talk to the TAs or myself about homework stuff, Piazza, office hours, come to me after lecture, before lecture. Talk to us in our formal roles. The one official thing that I do use Discord for is during lecture. There's a lecture channel in the Discord server. I'll have that open on my phone during lectures, and I'll be watching it during every lecture throughout the semester. Except sometimes I forget. Very rarely, but I'm usually watching that. So if you see me constantly watching my phone during lecture, I'm not ignoring you. That'd be extremely rude. What I'm doing is watching for questions that you might have during lecture, or comments or whatever you have during lecture. So if you have a question, maybe something I said was pretty confusing, you want some clarification, but you don't want to raise your hand and have everybody stare at you while we're listening to your question. I understand that's not everybody's jam. I never liked doing that when I was a student. Post it in the Discord, and then when I glance at my phone next, I'll be able to answer that question. If you do want to raise your hand and ask a question that way, the good old-fashioned way, I'm all about that too. I'll say yo, and then you'll ask your question. We'll do it the old-fashioned way too. I'm perfectly fine with that. But if not, post on Discord. You have both those options available to you. And sometimes I can't read. The are not posted, so probably not. That's probably they are not posted, so probably not. Yeah, that was a question from the previous lecture. I'll answer it here. But the homework one, I usually like to have homework one posted before day one. I missed that target this semester, but I want to get it posted by Wednesday by the time we start covering the content for that homework. I'll get homework one posted, and then you can get started on it. It'll be mostly the same as it was last semester, but I do want to make some changes to homework 1. There were some, just some like traps, unintended traps that students fell in. I want to get rid of those for homework 1 before I post the newest version. But yeah, feel free to post there. If the channel gets out of hand, it really depends on sections. Some sections go wild in there and some won't say anything for months in there. But if it does get out of hand, there's also a lecture off-topic channel. So if you just want to talk about whatever with your classmates, I don't watch that channel. So if you just want to say, what the hell is he talking about, and just have a side conversation, or talk about, I don't know, I don't care, whatever you want to talk about. Go to the off-channel one, or off-topic. But if it's something that should have my attention, if it's a question about lecture, if it's a comment related to lecture, put it in the lecture channel so I can see it. The reason I do this, during COVID, I streamed my lectures on Twitch, and I had Twitch chat right there all the time. And students would use that and interact the whole lecture. And then we come back to live, and there's no interaction. Y'all don't talk to me during lecture at all. So I wanted to get that Twitch chat vibe in the classroom. Some sections, like I said, take advantage of that, and we have a pretty lively atmosphere. Some don't. You get to all choose what you're going to be. But I hope you'll use it so we can get some, I don't know, a little more excitement in lectures. So, but that's there. If you want to use it, go for it. If you don't, don't. Okay, any questions so far before we jump into the syllabus proper? Yep. I don't yet. Once I do know them, I'll post them on the schedule. They'll likely be sometime on Tuesdays. That's all I got so far. It's as specific as I can be. That said, I'll always stick around as long as I can after lecture to answer some questions, but I do have another lecture right after this one, so there's not a ton of time. But if you've got a quick question and you just need a few minutes of my time, after lecture, come down, we can resolve it then, hopefully. But if not, I will get mine posted. Yep. Panopto. I forgot what Panopto is, so no. Panopto. Oh, yeah, for the video recordings. Yes. Yes, kind of. So you can use it if you want. The room is recording right now. The Panopto should have this lecture right after lecture happens. It'll be there available to you. But I will have a TA repost the lecture onto YouTube. So if you don't want to use Panopto and you're comfortable waiting until the TA gets around to that, then you can just watch the old lectures on YouTube. But the lectures are recorded, for a shorter answer. Yeah.
How much do I need the CS116, the knowledge from it?
A lot. A lot. That's one of my first things right here. All of it. You need to be comfortable with all of the 115 material. There are some caveats to that. I'll explain in more detail when I get there, but the short answer is all of modules 1 and 2 and file I/O from module 3. You're not going to need databases, security, web stuff, JavaScript, actually Python either. You won't need to know any language-specific stuff, but you will need to know your variables, expressions, functions, data structures, loops, I think I just said conditionals. File I/O, as I already mentioned. I just feel like I missed one topic, but.
Do you know how that relates to AP, the CSE?
If you took AP, you should have all those fundamentals. AP goes a bit beyond 115, at least in certain areas. You're already ahead on the OOP stuff, for example. You already know inheritance, polymorphism classes. And you should certainly know at least array list. Do they do any key value store? Do you do hash maps? Any maps? So that might be a new thing, getting a key value store. I think you'll be able to pick that up quick as long as you know all the other stuff. Array lists, loops, conditionals, if, else, basic variables and functions, methods in Java. I think you should be good. Key value store is the one thing that's going to throw you off, and maybe file I/O if you haven't done that, reading a file. Yeah. Yep. No, so we're going to use the courses in Java, so we don't have pointers, but we will talk about, it kind of is pointers in C++, actually, the way Java works. But I'll call them references. kind of incorrectly. I'll call them references, but understanding that a variable that stores an object actually stores a reference to an object on the heap. That will be a big topic. But that's not something I expect you to know coming in. That's something I'll cover in detail. None of you, if you don't understand what I just said, that's perfectly fine. We'll cover it. Yep.
During the summer when I took CSE116, for the AutoLab, they had a specific requirement where in the PDF they said do not use Safari. Is there some caveats to using Mac and Safari or any software like that?
Was it just for the web development part of the course? I don't expect Safari to have any issues in 116. That might have been during the web portion.
So,
Was it? Like using Bottle in JavaScript?
no, it was just with submission on AutoLab.
Possibly. I don't know. If it is, I mean, you can use a different browser, but that won't affect your code itself anyway. It might affect the submission.
Not like browser, but like in general, like Mac OS software specific problems.
If issues come up, we'll handle them as they do. Did I see a question over here?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's the same topic. I remember I was trying to, like, last semester, I was in 115, I was trying to upload a project, and I only had 5 attempts, and I used 4 of them in Safari, and I was like, okay, last one will be in Chrome, and it worked, but like, before that, it wouldn't upload all the files. It had a problem when I was trying to upload, like, a folder, an entire folder of the project.
Okay.
Using Safari.
And you were submitting the folder directly? You weren't creating a zip file with the folder?
Yeah, no, I was creating.
And then submitting the zip and then,
Yeah.
okay.
It did work in Chrome though.
Okay. I wasn't 100% aware of that. So not using Safari in general is a good idea actually. But yeah, if that's a thing, as long as you don't mind using a different browser for submission. Though that is something we should look into. This shouldn't be a feature. All right, any other questions? Nothing in chat? All right, let's go through the course. All right, so in 115, I don't know if the current 115 instructors say this at all, but something I always said, one of my punchlines I like to say in 115 is, with the content we teach you in 115, you can program anything you can imagine. And I'll hold to that. I'll say that till I retire, and then I'll stop saying it. But you can do anything you can imagine. You can program anything with all the topics you've learned. You've learned the basics of programming, and with that you can do anything, especially since you know how to go to the internet, find an API, find a library, use pip to install it, or requirements.txt, I assume you use, and start plugging libraries in together that do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. You can get a lot done. You can get anything done. If you can imagine it, you can do it. But there's a caveat. Of course there's a caveat, because we're going to keep you here for 3.5 more years teaching you all kinds of other stuff. So what else is there to learn if you can do anything? Everything already is writing large programs. So you can code anything you can imagine. But once you get to a program that's more than a couple hundred lines of code, it's going to be very, very difficult, because you don't really know how to organize a project. You don't know how to work on a big project yet. So this is the focus in 116. How are we going to write those larger programs? Once the program gets big and cumbersome, how are we going to keep it organized in a way that we can add new features onto it? So thinking of your final project in 115, if after the final project was due, your instructor said, okay, now make it do these 3 other things, add these 3 other features to it. That might be hard to do depending on how you organize your code. Maybe you organize it very well and that'd be easy. But odds are you have large methods with 100 lines of code in a single method that's not modularized at all. It's going to be tough to write those large programs. So that's our focus in 116. Yep. So we don't have structures in Java, but functions and classes. Yes. Yeah, with functions and technically they're methods in Java. Methods and classes will be the big ones. So those ones are OOP. So classes and OOP. Once we have classes, then using inheritance and polymorphism to be able to expand those classes quickly. If we get a new feature request, there are certain lectures where I show you right here. Somebody says, add this new feature. We're going to do it by adding a new class here, and bam, it just works. It's going to be great. OOP is all about structuring your project, in my opinion at least. You might get different answers. You ask different people. In my opinion, OOP is all about structuring your code so you can easily modify it, easily add to it, and easily test it. So unit testing, how do you know your code's right? Is a question we're going to ask pretty early in the semester. I believe next week. I forget off the top of my head. No, I added an extra week of Java, an extra few lectures of Java. So week 3, we're going to say, well, how do you know your code's right? Well, you just submit it to AutoLab, and if AutoLab says it's right, then it's right. Yay. But that's not going to be the case throughout your entire career. You're always going to have AutoLab checking your code for you. So we need some way for you to test your own code, and that's going to be through unit testing in 116. So you're going to write code that's going to test your code and automate that testing procedure. And then in 116, a lot of what AutoLab is going to do is test how well your tests are testing your code. So we get an extra level of abstraction there where AutoLab's testing your testing. And then data structures and algorithms. My one last thing I want to say about this. When you have like 100 lines of code, you run it, you see if it works, okay, whatever. When you have, like, say, 500 lines of code, 1,000 lines of code, thousands of lines of code, it's going to be a lot harder to just run the program and just check if it works. You're going to want to automate that process quite a bit. Writing code that's able to be tested, then writing the tests for that code is an important skill to learn. And then data structures and algorithms. This doesn't fit exactly with the motif of writing larger programs, but we're going to learn some more data structures. Linked lists, trees, and graphs. So you already know a sequential data structure. In Python, it was lists. In JavaScript, it was arrays. You have a key value store. In Python, it was dictionaries. In JavaScript, it was objects. Or if you didn't learn any key value stores, you'll learn maps. Hash map in Java is the one we're going to learn. In C++, since it came up, would be a vector for your sequential. Oh, I haven't used C++ in a while. And I think it's just map, isn't it, for the key value store? I don't remember. I shouldn't even went down that rabbit hole. But anyway, so you have 2 types of data structures already. We're going to add 3 more to that. Need enough fingers. And in 115, your focus was on write programs that work. Write a function that does this, that on input X outputs Y. And if it works, and you celebrate, and you get a good grade. In 116, yes, we still want code that works, of course, but we have a shift in focus on to how your code works. How does a program work? What do computers even do when it looks at your code? To a large extent, this is going to be the quizzes where we're doing memory diagrams. You get a program, and for your quiz, you got to tell me everything that the computer does when it runs that program. What's happening in memory as that program runs. So we want to know not just, oh yeah, that works, because when you write a loop like this, it just does it. No, I want to know that you know how that it's actually working. We have a lot of expectations in this course. This is not an easy course. And I always say that. I have this whole conversation about, I don't think this is a difficult course. And I always start off with, this course is difficult. This course is not easy. I maintain that this isn't a hard course or a difficult course. Now, this is just a nuance of language, but this is going to be a time-consuming course. I don't think there's anything objectively like this is just ridiculously hard, but it will be time-consuming. There are things that will take you a while to learn. And maybe that's just me. Aside from 116, just anything, I don't think anything's objectively just hard, but they are time-consuming. Some things take longer to learn than other things. You might be like, that's crazy. That just means it's hard, but I don't know. It is what it is. That's how I like to use those words. But it will be time-consuming. You've heard this in a lot of courses. You probably even heard this from 115. And for most courses, you're probably like me and you never believed it. And then you got through the course and didn't put in much time and walked away with an A, especially like gen eds and stuff. Some gen eds, you can put in like 3 hours a week and get an A. That's unless you're a prodigy or if you did a lot of programming in high school and you've already practiced all the concepts that we're teaching in this course, or at least most of them, that you might be an exception in that if you've already basically put in these hours already and before you got into this classroom, before you walked into this classroom. If you don't know these concepts already, at least 12 hours per week. This will be true for this class. Even if it wasn't true in 115, there is a big jump up from 115 to 116. From 115 to 116, there's just a lot more we have to cover. There's a lot of ground to cover from now until the end of the semester. And then there's another big jump from 116 to 220 and 250. Those courses get a lot more intense. And then in my opinion, after those courses, you make it through 220, 250, you're good. You're going to make it through to graduation if you're a CS major. And but I can't soften this course up. The reason I explain this, I can't soften this course up. I can't bring this down closer to 115 because then I'm just setting you up for failure with a bigger jump to 220, 250. I would just be setting you up for 2 Fs if you're taking them both next semester. Don't want to do that to you. So I can't let up. We got to get through all this stuff. You got to learn it all. 12 hours per week minimum. A lot of caveats to this. I felt a little behind on time, so I won't give my entire lecture on this one, but this is an average. So if you don't put in your 12 hours per week, these first few weeks when there's nothing due, you're waiting for that first deadline, don't be surprised if that first deadline comes up, or realistically the fourth one. Programming test 4, I think, is where the heat really starts turning up. Don't be surprised you get to programming test 4 and you're suddenly putting 40 plus hours a week just into 116. It's because those hours that you didn't put in to really understand the concepts these first few weeks, it's going to catch up to you. You're going to have weeks that are absolute misery. It's going to be terrible. And this does imply that you're good on all those topics from 115 that we talked about. I won't rehash them here. But all that 115 stuff, if you're not completely good on all that stuff, you're already below that average 12 hours per week. You're going to have to do that. If you didn't put in that time in 115, it's going to catch up to you here, especially if you spent your summer not thinking about programming at all, which, I mean, good for you, honestly. You don't have to. But if you did, you do have to refresh on all that 115 stuff, because I do expect you to know the hell out of those concepts, those variables, expressions, functions, loops, conditionals, file I/O. I always feel like I'm missing one. I don't know if I am or not. Data structures? I don't know if I said data structures. But what's that?
Is it CSV files?
Yeah, we're going to read CSV files again. So the file I/O, I keep it pretty light, to be honest. But you do have to be familiar with that. You should be familiar with that from 115. Because I'm just going to say, here's how you do it in Java. And then we're going to move on. So I do expect you to be familiar with that material. As a general rule of thumb, if you didn't get through 115 with an A or an A minus, or if you did and forgot some of that stuff over the summer, you got to do some catching up. You need to know that stuff. And again, just to reiterate, you don't need to know the web stuff. You don't need to know Python or JavaScript specifically. You just need to know those concepts and be able to apply them to Java this semester. You don't need to know the security stuff. Database. I keep forgetting what I already listed. But most of the Module 3 stuff and all the Module 4 stuff. You're not going to be held accountable for this semester. There will be future courses that are going to be like, well, you know what databases are, so let's use databases. But not in 116. If you want some help with 115 content, I got 2 links here. You can get a little bit of review on that. But let's talk. Oh my goodness, I only gave myself 11 minutes to talk about the grading structure. So let's talk about the grading structure. Grading structure is a little different in this course. It does take a while. Hopefully I can do it in 11 minutes here. It does take a while to explain. I don't use a regular percentage-based grading system where it's homework's 40%, exams are 20%, quizzes are 40%. I don't do that. There are issues with that. This is my replacement for it. I believe that this is a superior grading structure. Fight me on that. So this one, this is how we're graded in 116. And aside from testing is kind of implicit within both of these, but the two big categories are OOP and data structures, where you're going to see explicit assessment. And we have learning objectives and application objectives. These are the two categories that you're graded on. It's not, I'm fine with it. But learning objectives, there are learning objectives in the course. You need to complete every single one of these to pass the class. These are the learning objectives, meaning your objective coming into this class is to learn these things. You need to be able to do all of these things to pass. One of my big issues with percentage-based grading is it's very easy to just miss an entire topic of a course. And when all the content is building on itself, as it does in computer science, you need to know all of 115 to do 116. You need to know all of the concepts in 116, the early semester concepts to do the late semester concepts. Like, it all builds on each other. It's like learning math from scratch. You need to learn how to add before you can multiply, before you can do limits, before you can do calculus. You have a very clear progression. You need to know it all. So this is my way of saying you got to do it all. You got to be able to do it all. So you have to do all these to pass, which seems very harsh on the surface. Let's go through them first. 3 quizzes. These are going to be in lab. 3 interviews in lab. And 8 programming assignments. You need to complete all of these. They will all be graded on a pass-fail basis. And you have to pass them all by the end of the semester. So it's very harsh on the surface. I'll argue that it's not as harsh as it sounds. So for the quizzes and the interviews, actually, you're going to get 3 chances for each one of these. You have your first chance quiz and second chance quiz. These are both labeled on the lab schedule. If you scroll down on the course website, you'll see the whole schedule. So you have 2 labs where you have 2 separate chances to pass the quiz. And if you don't pass it in the first 2 chances, we have a 3rd chance on the final exam. So you don't get your quizzes done after 2 tries. Take your 3rd try in the final exam. Get it done there, and you can still pass the class. Interviews, same thing. First chance and second chance are labeled on the course website, on the lab schedule. And 3rd chance during the final exam. The interviews are going to be oral interviews with the TAs. And then if you need the final exam chance, just logistically, it's hard to do. So on the final exam, it'll be written. You'll just write out your answers. But I want everybody to have practice with face-to-face interviews, because I don't want your first interview having an internship or a job on the line. We're going to give you practice having face-to-face technical questions. You're going to get some practice with that. And then the programming tests, these are a little more straightforward. AutoLab either gives you a 1 and says you're good, or a 0 and says you got more work to do. All programming tests are due on the last day of classes. Yes?
What will interviews consist of?
Questions about the concepts of the course. So we have, like the first one will be about, these topics. But the TA will ask you technical questions about the topics. Explain to me the structure of a tree. Explain to me the structure of a linked list. How would I remove a node from a linked list? Things like that. Okay, and just to make sure it's super duper clear, complete all 8 programming tasks, all 3 quizzes, all 3 interviews, and then your grade will depend on application objectives. Don't complete all of them, your grade's enough. You failed the course. But you do have 3 chances for each interview, 3 chances for each quiz, and the programming tests are due at the end of the semester. So application objectives are where you're actually going to improve your grade. You need at least 4 of these just to pass the class. So even if you get all the LOs, you need 4 AOs to pass. And then lower AOs, you get your improving your grade. The good thing here, most of the application objectives don't require you to do extra work. The point of the application objectives are to encourage you to stay on track with the course. So it's very easy to fall behind in CSE116. And if you're more than, my rule of thumb is 2 weeks behind. If you're 2 weeks behind, you're going to fail. I pretty much write off a student at that point, if you're 2 weeks behind on any of your stuff. So to encourage you to stay on top of the material, this is where the application objectives come in. The programming tasks, I mentioned they're all due at the end of the semester. The last day of classes, midnight, December 11th, that's when all 8 programming tests are due. If you're trying to do all 8 of them in that last week, you're going to fail. Nobody's done that. I've seen students try, 0% of them are successful. They can't do it. If they were capable of doing that, they would have just got them done earlier. Any student who's waiting that long you can't do it. There are students who could accomplish that. I'm just repeating myself. There are students who could accomplish that, but they just got stuff done earlier because it's no big deal. They just sat down, cranked it out, submitted it. It's done. If you're waiting that long, it's probably because these are big, scary tasks that you can't do that quick. So to encourage you to do them earlier, there are 3 deadlines for every programming task. The expected deadline, this, as the name implies, is when I expect you to have the assignment done. This is the Friday morning after all of the content required for that programming task has been covered in lecture. So 1 week after the content shuts off, that's when I would expect you to have the assignment done by. If I were doing a percentage-based grading structure, this would be the only deadline. That would be your deadline. Whatever you got on that, it goes into your percentage formula and calculates into your final grade. That'd be the only thing. Since this is not a percentage-based system, we have more deadlines because you have to get these done. If you get done by every task you get done by the expected deadline, it's 2 application objectives. So you just stay on track. You're doing the stuff you have to do anyway, but you do them when I expect you to do them. Stay up to date on the course material and get your stuff done. You're getting 2 application objectives per programming task for a total of 16, just for doing things you have to do anyway. There's a late deadline. This is the Wednesday after the expected deadline. And this gives you an opportunity to still, oops, I'm missing a letter there. This still gives you a chance to get 1 application objective, even if you miss the expected deadline. And then if you're relying on that final deadline on the last day of classes, no AOs for you. You can use that deadline to still pass the class. I'm not giving you any AOs for relying on that deadline. What are you, crazy? There is 1 programming assignment. There's a 9th programming task that's an application objective task where you can earn 2 AOs, and there's no LOs attached to it. It's a completely optional assignment for you to earn yourself 2 more AOs if you need those 2 to get to that next letter grade. Quizzes, complete it on the first chance lab, 2 AOs. Second chance lab, 1 AO. If you're relying on the final exam, no AOs. Same with interviews. Interview on the first chance, 2 AOs. Second chance, 1 AO. Relying on the final exam, 0 AOs. I'll give you that last chance to pass, but I'm not rewarding you for using the last chance. And then lecture questions. Each lecture starting on Wednesday is going to have a simple multiple choice question. These are meant to be very easy. As long as you're attending lecture and conscious throughout lecture, you should be able to get these questions. Get 80% of them, up to 4 AOs, then you can read the rest. To encourage you to attend lecture, especially with recorded lectures, it's easy to just say, I'll watch the recorded lectures. If you're anything like me, you let them build up and you're trying to watch 10 lectures in a day on the day of the deadline, and it doesn't work. So this is my way of encouraging you to stay up to date on the lectures. And then the grade cutoffs are carefully chosen. You need 4 to pass. So as long as you're showing up to lecture and getting your lecture questions in, and you needed the final exam for all 6 things, you used the last deadline for all the programming tests, you can still pass the class. So this 4 should be the easiest hurdle to make. Just show up and answer your lecture questions. You'll get your 4 AOs. That number 4 also pops up here. If you know the hell out of programming, you have a lot of practice or something, you're like, I don't need to go to lecture. Skip those 4 AOs for lecture questions. Don't come to lecture. I don't care. I'm not going to stop you. But you better nail absolutely everything else in the course on the first try. And then I'm not forcing you to come to lecture. And then everything else is just scaled mathematically. And I only have a minute for this, but don't cheat. This is the most common form of cheating. This is what I see a lot. 2 students sitting next to each other and working on the same assignment and looking at each other's screens as they're working together. And often when I have them in my office and I'm telling them that they failed, they often at least say that they didn't think they were cheating, they didn't think they were crossing any lines, but it is. Once your code looks very similar to someone else's, if you are in that situation, once you're done with the assignment, look at each other's code, because you already did anyway, You're not supposed to. But look at each other's code and look how similar it is to each other. It's going to be very similar. And that's going to pop up in my similarity detection tools. And then I'm going to call you into my office. And it's going to be a bad time for all of us. Don't do it. Also, artificial intelligence is a big thing these days. Don't use it. I know the temptation's there. What I see with students who use AI to help with their assignments is once the assignments get sufficiently complex, which is about task 4, they have no idea what to do because the AI can't do it anymore. So have a great day. I'll see y'all on Wednesday.